The deadly game of cat and mouse at sea continues in our film Desperate Voyage after the news.
Queensway's Super Sale 82, open Friday, New Year's Day. Viscount double drawer divan, half price. £200 off these luxury suites. Exclusive blended wall unit, half price. And free fitting on giant carpet stocks.
Super choice, super value, super store.
Queensway's biggest ever Super Sale 82, open Friday, New Year's Day.
It's me on this LP. We are most amused. Very funny album.
Hits, hits, hits. 21 smash hits with the #1 from Human League.
Deal yourself a big saving hand at the Texas Ace of Sales. Save £2 on 5 litres of Magicoat emulsion. Ace sale price only $4.99. Save up to £2 a box on Texas ceramic tiles. Ace sale price only $2.99. Save £1.50 on Texas loft insulation. Full 5-metre roll, only $2.49. Deal yourself a big saving hand at Texas Home Care now.
Happy with your wash?
Certainly.
What about close-up?
Well, not completely. You can't shift marks like that without boiling, and you don't put modern things like Jack's shirt into the boil wash.
Exactly. And that's why now there's new Ariel Automatic.
An Ariel for automatics?
Yes, it's the first automatic powder to wash close-up clean without the boil wash.
Get out marks like this without the boil wash. I'd like to see it.
Okay, let's do a low-temperature wash. Now, see this collar dirt? Look at it in close-up. And watch that dirt lift out. Ariel Automatic's new biological formula removes dirt that ordinary powders leave behind, even without boiling.
It's true. Look, that collar mark's gone, and without boiling.
And the rest of the wash?
Much cleaner. The soles of Katie's nylon socks, the seat of Jimmy's shorts, everything I can't boil is so much cleaner.
With new Ariel Automatic, you can wash close-up clean, even when you don't boil wash.
The trouble with some investments paying extra interest comes if you want your money back early. Then they want some interest back. Oh dear. Now, these new Abbey National high-option bond shares pay 1.5% above their normal share rate for £500 or more invested for a year, and to come out early, you just give 3 months written notice and you get your money back. With full interest due. Thank you. New Abbey National high-option bond shares. Extra interest, no financial penalties.
It's our biggest ever sale with more at half price than ever before. Open New Year's Day.
Only one of these soluble pain relief tablets you can buy is clearly soluble. Aspro Clear dissolves completely, relieves pain fast.
2 pints of Hofmeister, please.
Ah, good.
Hofmeister. Great lager.
Shame about the wallet.
This is Thames from London. Now the national news from the studios of ITN, and here's the time check for you. It's exactly 10 o'clock.
The Penlee lifeboatmen won't sail their new boat until the money's sorted out. Mrs. Thatcher says, "I'm running things soundly." And the flight lieutenant takes over in Ghana again. Good evening. The men who volunteered to man the replacement lifeboat at Penlee in Cornwall say they won't put to sea in a new boat until they're sure that the families of the lifeboatmen who drowned will share all the disaster fund. They will stand by to help the Newlyn boat nearby to cover the area. The Penlee fund is now over £1.5 million, enough to give the relatives £100,000 each. But the relatives have heard that under the present law, they'll get only enough money to meet what are called reasonable needs, and the rest would go to other charities. The local Penwith Council administers the fund, and its chief executive, Mr. John Moore, is meeting the charity commissioners next week. He wants the relatives to get as much as possible, and the lifeboatmen are insisting on that. MPs, too, on both sides of the Commons are also calling for a change in the charity law.
This boat had held out a lifeline to the shattered emotions of Mousel. She should have been a symbol to help relatives and friends take their minds away from the loss of the Penlee lifeboat on December the 19th. But today, this temporary replacement for the lost boat and her crew lies lifeless in the harbour at Newlyn. Although she will soon be hauled up into the boathouse on Penlee Point, just a couple of miles away, the remaining men of her predecessor's crew say they won't sail in her, not even in an emergency. This afternoon, as they gathered to mourn their fellow lifeboatman, John Blewett, their spokesman explained why.
One has to take steps which you feel are necessary, and we feel that this is necessary. It was our mates that went down the slip that night, and we know their relatives, and we know that they're not going to go cap in hand to ask for money.
What are the feelings of the relatives and the families about this now?
To my knowledge, they're very distraught at the whole thing. They were amazed at the generosity of people, and they were very, very thankful that people would come forward and help them in their time of distress, money-wise, and with their thoughts and prayers, etc. To suddenly be told that you will have to go along to trustees and ask for your various needs, although they've been assured that their immediate needs will be looked after, to them is not part of life, and they just won't do it.
This bitter twist has left grieving families bewildered and hurt. They wanted a chance to start rebuilding their lives and not to be at the centre of a controversy over red tape.
The last two lifeboat disasters in Britain, at Long Hope in the Orkneys in 1969 and at Fraserburgh in 1970, raised less than £100,000. If the entire Penlee fund were to be shared out, each relative would get £100,000, but at present lawyers disagree about the status of what they call spontaneously launched appeals. An Act of 1601 actually prohibits the distribution of all funds to the relatives. But later legal decisions suggest that the Charity Commissioners could regard the Penlee appeal as a private fund. If so, the money could be shared out and would be tax-free. The Prime Minister said today she would persevere with her economic policies into the new year. Our political correspondent, David Walter, asked her if she were really veering now towards new policies, as Mr. Heath had suggested she should.
Running things soundly. That's the only hope for Britain in the future. When I came into power, we'd had a Labour government that had borrowed and borrowed and borrowed from overseas. Borrowed until our debt was enormous. We've run things soundly. Now, our reserves vastly exceed our debts, and we've been paying the money back which they borrowed. It's a far better position for Britain to be in, running her economy soundly. And what I'm trying to do is trying to achieve some of the success of the Germans and the Japanese. Those who have lower inflation have lower unemployment. We're trying to put things right which haven't been tackled for 30 years. We're succeeding. We must persevere.
On Poland, Mrs. Thatcher said President Reagan was quite right to put on sanctions against the Soviet Union. The Russian tactic, she said, was to try to divide the West, but the West would stick together because it knew communism and freedom couldn't exist side by side. Reports from Poland tonight say troops are surrounding an ammunition factory in the Pionkov in the Radom area. Gelignite is said to have been used in some of the Silesian mine occupations, so it's thought the military are now taking precautions to stop explosives and firearms getting to the opposition. More price rises have just been announced. Sugar, salt, cheese, pork and bacon, all hard to find in the shops anyway, have had their prices trebled. Polish television, obeying the regime, has shown people giving gifts and New Year wishes to the troops. It said the soldiers were thanked for working so hard to keep the peace. Reports from Ghana say many people were killed in the military coup there today. The coup was led by Flight Lieutenant Gerry Rawlings, the second time he seized power. There's still no word on what happened to the deposed president, Mr. Hiller Liman, who took over from Flight Lieutenant Rawlings after his first coup 2 years ago. David Smith at ITN has been following the story from Ghana.
Even by African standards, the return of Gerry Rawlings is a remarkable example of how junior officers can wield supreme power in the Third World. This was Rawlings 2 years ago after his first coup. Brash, ruthless, but popular, something of a living folk hero. He was only in power then for 3 months, but he reduced the food shortages and the queues, albeit by violent means, like blowing up a market to stop hoarding, and having his men execute former leaders. Still, Rawlings was as good as his word. He promised elections, and he abided by the result, stepping down for the newly elected president, Hiller Lehman. For a while, Lehman, with the support of Rawlings, had the loyalty of the military. But by the end of last year, he was in trouble, his rule proving corrupt and inefficient. Vital cocoa exports dropped alarmingly. Soaring inflation meant a loaf of bread cost 2 days' wages. Waiting in the wings was Flight Lieutenant Rawlings, the man who kept his promise, the man who on seizing power again today said, "I'll go before a firing squad if I don't meet the wishes of the people."
An IRA man wanted in connection with the attempted murder of a soldier in Northern Ireland is in the Irish Republic tonight and free. Mr. Desmond Mackin arrived in Dublin from America after agreeing to voluntary deportation. The British government had tried for more than a year to have him extradited. But there were no police questions at Dublin Airport, and the IUC say they're simply reviewing the case.
Desmond Mackin's family and friends were at Dublin Airport early to meet the New York flight, but to their surprise and delight, the police weren't. It was an emotional reunion for the IRA man the British government had failed to get extradited to Britain, but who'd agreed to be deported to Ireland after being held in New York for 14 months as an illegal immigrant. The American courts had refused to send him back to Britain as they ruled the terrorist charge against him was of a political nature.
I didn't think I had any fear to come here because I had been arrested by the Southern Police and they had contacted the IUC and they showed no intention of following up the alleged charge, you know. It really is, that's why I have no fear. And I have no fear of the British choose to bring it in this country, you know.
Irish police have so far not had any request from the British authorities to arrest Mackin, so he left the airport unhindered to go back with his family to Dundalk, just south of the border.
Fleet Street delivery van drivers are threatening to shut down 6 national newspapers from Saturday. 9 hours of talks at the arbitration surface ACAS broke down tonight, though there may be more talks tomorrow. The dispute's over an EEC law which came in today, making tachographs, which monitor how long the driver works, compulsory for goods vehicles over 3.5 tons and for passenger vehicles with more than 15 seats. The Fleet Street drivers want more money for having tachographs. They say it's an extra responsibility.
Tonight it looks as if there will be few national newspapers at the weekend. At today's talks it's understood that the employers offered 80 pence per shift for every van driver using a tachograph, plus an offer to go to arbitration. The print union SOGAT wants £1.50 now and a further £1.50 in April. At the heart of the dispute is the threat of large-scale redundancies.
We are satisfied that if the disc is properly analysed, companies could look at their operating costs as far as the distribution side of Fleet Street is concerned, and that may lead them to wish to talk to us either about some productivity deal or some demanning arrangements that would cost the union perhaps jobs. And it seems to us, against that background, we ought to be entitled to some payment in advance of any of those things happening.
The Financial Times, The Express and The Guardian are the only papers you'll be able to get if the shutdown goes ahead. Their smaller vans aren't affected by the new regulations.
A climber has been killed and another seriously injured in the Cairngorms. They were in a party of students from Imperial College, London, who'd been missing overnight. Rescue teams went out when one student raised the alarm. The dead man was Mr. Peter Robinson from Kent. Another climber, Mr. Mark Bone from Leicestershire, survived a 900-foot fall. He's got head injuries. 2 of the survivors were asked if they thought it had been foolish to try to climb in such appalling weather.
If it's foolhardy to go into the mountains, there's a lot of foolhardy people in here in Abbeymoor. I don't think it's foolhardy to go into the mountains at all.
Will you be going climbing again in the near future?
I will,
No, we're going climbing in the near future, yes. Maybe not here, but I'll be going climbing.
The Spanish police have confirmed that the father of the pop star Julio Iglesias has been kidnapped, and they've issued photo-fit pictures of 2 suspects. The police believe there was no political motive. Dr. Julio Iglesias Puga, a well-known gynecologist, disappeared in Madrid on Tuesday. Here, Mrs. Shirley Williams is in hospital in London after pulling a knee ligament while tobogganing with her daughter. Nearly 700 people are celebrating more than the New Year tonight because they're all in the New Year honours list. Among them was Sister Margaret Savage, a nurse who led 100 elderly and disabled patients from a Liverpool hospital when it was endangered by last summer's riots in Toxteth.
It was midnight when the rioters finally called a truce. They even helped Sister Savage with the evacuation. But for 100 confused patients, it was a terrifying ordeal. It took 40 minutes to move them, and as the last ambulance went, the riot resumed. Fortunately, the hospital stood undamaged, though the building next door was burned down. Tonight, the scene is more peaceful, and for Sister Savage, MBE, it's the start of another shift. As usual, she chats with her old folk before they settle down for the night. But a few months later, what does she now recall of the evacuation?
You know, it had to be done quickly, so there wasn't much time for thought, really. We tried to keep it as orderly as possible, which was a bit difficult under the circumstances, but...
And the patients themselves, once they were in the other hospitals in the city, what was their reaction?
Oh, they were very happy. They all seemed to treat it as, you know, a visit elsewhere, but they wanted to get back home as soon as they could. It was like going on a little, you know, visit to, say, relatives or friends or whatever, and they thoroughly enjoyed it, but they wanted to get back home because this is their home.
New Year's Eve normally passes unnoticed at this hospital. Tonight, though, there's going to be a special party for Sister Savage. John Toker, News at 10, Liverpool.
And also noticed a British Empire Medal to ITN's Jo Redding. She runs the switchboard here with distinction and success. She arrived before we began broadcasting over 25 years ago. And that's the last of 1981, except for ITN's review of the year, The Making of 1981, at 10:45 tomorrow night. We'll be back next year. So a happy new year. They're celebrating in Trafalgar Square already. Good night.
And hopefully I shall be taking my annual dip in Trafalgar Square in around about 2.5 hours' time. Well, don't forget, in just a few minutes, part 2 of our feature film for this New Year's Eve, Desperate Journey. But now here's a look at the weather forecast for the Thames television area. Overnight, there will be a mixture of both showers, fog patches and patches of ice on the roads. Tomorrow, New Year's Day, we'll see the showers dying out and it will be a bright afternoon. The top temperature will reach 9 degrees centigrade, that's 48 degrees Fahrenheit. And the wind, that'll be southwesterly. And the outlook for Saturday is rain all day. And that's the end of the weather forecast.
Got to polish off me jigsaw.
Must oil my cricket bat.
He's got to catch up with the ironing.
The boss has dropped in for a chat.
Long Life was the first beer brewed expressly to be drunk at home. So, whatever it is that brings you home, Long Life's the beer to come home to.
Don't miss London's biggest furniture and carpet sale at UK. Hurry to Olympia for this real hide swivel chair and stool, reduced to £100. Hurry to Bow for this beautiful bed, reduced to £200. And there are hundreds of other offers at half price or even less right through the stores. Don't miss London's biggest half-price furniture and carpet sale at UK now.
Please, miss, I want to run away.
Well, you've come to the right place. We can help you run away to thousands of places at Thomas Cook. When you've picked where to go, we make sure you get a really good price. Then Barbara will help if you need a visa or a car. And Derek knows all about travellers' checks and currency.
Hi.
Come on, we'll come back soon and then we can all run away with Thomas Cook.
Nobody knows more about holidays than Thomas Cook. Don't just book it, Thomas Cook it.
Ring this number for your do-as-you-please Holly Marine Holiday Village brochure.
Holly Marine, do as you please, please.
Part
2 of the Great Japan exhibition has just opened, revealing even more of Japan's rarest treasures. See them now at the Royal Academy.
The Encyclopedia of Birds vividly brings to life every single bird seen in Britain and Europe. It describes their courting, breeding, nesting, and feeding habits, their migration patterns, their song characteristics. Week by week, all this information, beautifully illustrated in superb colour, builds into the most comprehensive work on British and European birds ever published. The Encyclopedia of Birds is on sale now with Part 2 and this birdsong record free.
The trouble with some investments paying extra interest comes if you want your money back early. Then they want some interest back. Oh dear. Now, these new Abbey National High Option Bond shares pay 1.5% above their normal share rate for £500 or more invested for a year, and to come out early, you just give 3 months written notice and you get your money back. With full interest due. Thank you. New Abbey National High Option Bond shares. Extra interest, no financial penalties.
When they've been ill and off their food, give them the glucose energy of Lucozade. Lucozade aids recovery.
Perring's Furnishing Sale. Great reductions on quality upholstery, carpets, bedroom and dining furniture. Perring's, the experienced furnishers. Don't be late for the bargains.
Everything for the home at Heel's Winter Sale starts January the 2nd, 9 a.m. Remember to hurry because things will go fast.
Now is the time to start planning your holiday. Phone 388 1122 anytime and choose your brochures from the many holidays being advertised on this station.
Now we return to tonight's film of action on the high seas as the deadly chase goes on in Desperate Voyage.